Welcome back to the Ratty Studio. I'm Buzz Cutler. This is Past Master sitting right here beside me.
Five-time champ.
As he is wont to do. What, you are a five-time champ?
Oh, yeah.
But your reign is over.
It's sadly, yes.
Look in your rear view. You know who's coming up on you.
Carl Edwards.
No, I was thinking me.
Not really.
Okay, but we're going to Homestead-Miami, and the whole damn Toasted Guac's going to be decided this weekend. What do these guys have to do? What do Carl Edwards and Tony Stewart have to do to secure the hardware for themselves?
Well, let's look at the. I think we're thinking there might be 5 key things here. Five key things that you're gonna. Yes, well done. Deutschland über alles. I think the first one is handling. So you look at Carl Edwards coming into this race, having won this race last year, and we note that this week we note that Goodyear's bringing back the same tire that they had last year. So even a lot of tracks have had different tires this year, this will be the same tire. That's great news for Carl as far as his setups go.
Well, and this is a 1.5 mile downforce track. Let's not lose sight of that.
Right.
So everything you would expect to come into play will come into play.
Right. So you talk about handling. I think it's a big key in making the right adjustments. That's number one. So that's just a pure speed thing. How quickly can I get through the corners? Handling is going to be very, very important. That's number one.
Yeah. And clean air, obviously, because of the style of racetrack. You know, if you get mired back in the pack and you can't get your car to handle right because you're in dirty air, that's going to be huge. These guys want to qualify well. These guys want to start up front to the best of their ability.
Absolutely, and I think track position that is clearly a factor here, and that brings us, I think, to pit strategy a little bit, because we've seen this year how big pit strategy has become. 2 tires, a lot of places the tires aren't giving up that much. 2 tires, 4 tires, no tires. When you look at Carl and Tony racing head-to-head, you wonder, will one of those guys feel the need to roll the dice at any point in the race with a tire call?
You know, and that's an interesting question, because we heard after Texas Carl Edwards say, all right, I'm done protecting. We're going to go out at Phoenix and we're going to go for it. We're going to go for the win. Yet that's not what happened at Phoenix. At Phoenix, late in the race, a rather conservative pit call from the 99, and not questioning that, it seemed like the smart
he was
thing
ahead
to do.
of Tony at the time.
So
right.
This weekend, will we see aggressive strategy calls on the part of the 14 and the 99, or will we see them play it a little bit more conservatively?
Well, and I think you saw the same thing out of Tony Stewart last week, where they had a little bit of a decision to make at Phoenix about when they would come in for their final stop. They elected to wait as long as they could because they had a little bit better fuel situation than a lot of guys, and if the caution had come out, Tony could have potentially trapped Carl back behind him there. In the event, what happened was Tony waited, came in, and did a fuel-only stop to try to maintain that track position. So there will be decisions like that. So I think that's a key part of this race. And the other thing, I think, is a double-file restart. That has been so huge this year because that's the best time to pick up positions on the racetrack. Guys will get really aggressive out there, and at the same time, it can get very chaotic when you bunch these guys up for the double-file restart. Tony has made a couple big-time moves on restarts here in the last couple weeks, and that could come into play again. So I think their performance on the restarts, however many there are, is going to be very, very important in this race, especially when you consider the luck of the draw, whether you're on the inside lane or the outside lane.
Right.
For the restart. That seems to be a big factor as well, whether you're behind the fast lane or the slow lane. So I think double-file restarts are huge also.
I think basically these two guys are going to race each other, and the rest of the field they're not going to really worry themselves with. If they're both in the 20s, that's fine. If they're both in the 10s, that's fine, perhaps
right.
even better. I think they're going to be concerned with where they are relative to one another.
And I think the other interesting thing here that we haven't talked about for a while, and we've almost forgotten about, is fuel mileage. Now, I don't anticipate this necessarily coming down to fuel mileage, but in the case where one guy is clearly faster, whether it be Tony or Carl, where there's a bigger separation between the two cars, you might find a team that's a little more willing to think about, how can I change this dynamic up? What can I do to put myself in a position to overcome maybe a deficiency in speed that I'm witnessing? That could be fuel, it could be some kind of tire strategy, it could be a lot of things. So I think that's an interesting case here. We have seen a number of fuel mileage races this year.
And if the race itself comes down to being a fuel mileage deal, we all know that Ford has struggled a little bit with fuel mileage when compared to Chevy and some of the other manufacturers, and will that be a disadvantage for Carl Edwards?
And then the final thing, I think we talked about it a lot on another video, is just the team aspect of this.
Right.
And having your team ready to help you in whatever way they can to pick up those points you need to win the title, and that could certainly come into play. So if the Fords are all fast, if they're fast in qualifying and they're starting up front, they're getting all the pit selections. If they're fast, or conversely, the Chevys and Tony's teammate Ryan Newman, that could be an advantage, and it could be, as close as these guys are, that could be decisive.
It could be a difference maker, who your teammates are and where they are and what they're willing to do for you.
Absolutely.
All right, for my teammate, Bassmasters, I'm Buzz Cutler. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.